Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload, and I never thought I'd walk into my own home one evening and feel like a stranger, but that's exactly what happened. I had just finished a long day at work, and all I wanted was to sit down, enjoy dinner with my family, and relax. When I pushed open the front door, I noticed something unusual immediately. The house was quiet, too quiet, like the silence that falls just before a storm. I set my bag down and slipped off my shoes, but as I stepped into the living room, I froze. Everyone was there. My wife Emily sat on the couch with her arms crossed. My parents were sitting close to her, their faces serious. My kids, Anna and Ryan, were on the edge of the sofa, looking down like they couldn't bear to make eye contact. And then there was my brother, Jack. He was leaning back comfortably in my armchair, the one I always sat in after dinner, like it belonged to him. A chill went down my spine. I forced a smile, trying to break the tension. "What's going on? Did something happen?" Before anyone else spoke, my son looked up. His eyes were red, like he'd been crying. He swallowed hard and said the words that hit me like a freight train. "Dad, please sit down. You need to hear this. You need to face the truth. You're no longer the head of this family. Uncle Jack has taken that role for us now." For a second, I couldn't breathe. I stared at him, then at Emily, then at Jack. My brother had the audacity to smirk. My dad shifted uncomfortably, and my mom avoided my eyes. "What are you talking about?" I finally said, my voice sharper than I intended. "Jack, the head of my family? This is my house, my wife, my kids, my parents, my blood. How could you even say something like that?" But no one answered right away. My daughter Anna whispered, "It's true, Dad. Uncle Jack has been here for us. He's helped Mom. He's been the one we could rely on." The words cut deeper than a knife. I looked at Emily, silently begging her to correct this madness, to say it was a misunderstanding, but she didn't. Instead, she said softly but firmly, "You've been too busy, too distant. Jack has stepped in where you couldn't. The kids trust him, even your parents trust him. It's not about you anymore." Her voice was cold, detached, like she had rehearsed this moment. I felt the anger rising inside me, boiling over like a pot about to spill. They all knew. They had all chosen him over me, my own family, my own blood, my brother. But instead of exploding, I did something that surprised even myself. I didn't yell, I didn't fight, I didn't argue. I stood there for a long, heavy moment, staring at each one of them, burning their faces into my memory. Then, I turned around, walked to the door, and left without another word. The silence I left behind must have been deafening. That night I drove aimlessly through the city. The streets were lit up, but everything felt dark to me. I replayed the scene over and over again in my head, each time feeling the sting sharper. My own son telling me I wasn't the head of my family. My wife sitting quietly, letting it happen. My parents not defending me. My brother sitting smugly in my chair like a king on his throne. I had never felt so betrayed. I spent the night in my car, parked in a quiet lot. I couldn't bring myself to go to a hotel. I didn't want to answer questions or explain myself to anyone. I stared at the ceiling of the car and thought about every sacrifice I had ever made for them. Working long hours, saving every penny, putting their needs before mine, being there whenever they needed me. And this was how they repaid me? By replacing me with Jack? By dawn, my anger had crystallized into something sharper, something colder. If they wanted Jack as the head of their family, fine, but they had no idea what they were really giving up. They had no idea the storm I was about to unleash. I didn't go to work that day. Instead, I drove to my lawyer's office. I explained everything, every painful detail. She looked at me, stunned at first, but then her professional composure returned. "If you're serious about this," she said, "we can make sure you're protected, but it won't be easy." "I'm not asking for easy," I said. "I'm asking for justice." Over the next few days, I moved with quiet precision. I withdrew money from joint accounts, transferred assets, and secured everything that had my name on it. The house? It was mine legally. I had bought it before marrying Emily. The investments? Under my name. Even the cars were registered to me. Piece by piece, I was dismantling the very foundation they thought they stood on. Meanwhile, I didn't answer any of their calls. Emily sent messages, asking where I was, why I had left. My parents tried to reach me, and even Anna sent a hesitant text. "Dad, please come home. We can talk." But I stayed silent. Then came Jack's call. He left a voicemail dripping with arrogance. "You can't just walk away like that. The family needs stability. You've failed them and they've accepted me. Just move on with your life." That was the final straw. By the time the weekend came, everything was set. I had spoken to the lawyer, set legal processes in motion, and ensured that when the dust settled, they would understand exactly what they had thrown away. The next morning, my phone lit up with 165 missed calls. Text after text poured in, panicked, desperate, pleading. They had finally realized what my silence meant. They had finally seen the revenge I had prepared. When I woke up after that long night of silence, the first thing I did was check my phone. The notifications hadn't stopped. Messages from Emily, missed calls from my parents, texts from Anna and Ryan. Even Jack had left more smug voicemails, but I didn't answer any of them. I wanted them to sit with the choice they had made. They wanted Jack as their leader? Let them live with the consequences. By noon that day, I was sitting with my lawyer again. We went through the paperwork in detail. She explained how quickly things could move if I stayed ahead of it all. She also reminded me that once the shock wore off, my family would likely fight back. "You have to prepare yourself emotionally," she said. "They'll blame you, twist the story, maybe even try to paint you as unstable." I nodded, already expecting it. They can say whatever they want. I know the truth, and deep down, so do they. That weekend, I rented a small apartment on the other side of town. Nothing fancy, just enough for me to think clearly and set myself free from the noise. I didn't tell anyone where I was. The fewer people who knew, the better. For the first time in years, I ate dinner alone in peace. No tense silence, no criticism, no weight on my shoulders. Just me. But peace didn't last long, not because of me, but because of them. By the end of the week, Emily showed up at my office. She stormed in without warning, her voice sharp and demanding. "What have you done? Why aren't you coming home? The kids are confused. My parents are asking questions. You're being childish." I sat back in my chair, calm. Childish? You let our son tell me I'm not the head of my family anymore. You let Jack sit in my chair, in my house, and act like he runs everything. You stood by and said nothing. You made your choice. Her face reddened. "I didn't make a choice. I was trying to—" "No, Emily," I interrupted. "You did. And now you can live with it." She froze, stunned at how calm I was. Normally she expected me to argue, to fight, to chase after her approval. But not this time. I wasn't chasing anyone. When she realized she wasn't going to break me down, she left in a huff, slamming the door behind her. My co-workers looked at me curiously, but no one asked. They could probably see the storm written on my face. Over the next few days, the cracks began to show. Jack had moved himself into my house more often, spending late nights there, eating meals with my family. He acted like he belonged, but he didn't understand the responsibilities that came with it. He had no authority over finances, no legal control over anything, and no respect from outsiders. One evening, Ryan called me secretly. His voice was shaky. "Dad, I don't know what's going on anymore. Uncle Jack, he's different when you're not around. He yells a lot. He makes us do things we don't want to. Mom just lets him." My heart sank. "I'm sorry you're dealing with this, buddy," I said softly. "But I need you to stay strong. Remember, I love you and I'm still your dad, always." He sniffled. "I know, I just wish you'd come back." It tore me apart not to go straight home and pull him out of there, but I knew I had to play the long game. If I reacted too soon, they would twist it all on me. No, I had to wait until the trap fully closed around them. Meanwhile, Jack started getting bolder. He bragged to neighbors that he was helping run things at the house. He posted photos online, sitting at my dining table, captioning them with smug comments like, "Family is everything." But behind the scenes, I had already cut off access to joint funds. Bills started bouncing. Credit cards declined. Emily must have panicked because she texted me late one night. "What are you doing? The mortgage didn't go through. Utilities are past due. This is reckless." I stared at her message for a long time before replying. Not reckless, reality. Maybe your new head of the family should handle it. No response came. 2 weeks later, I received a frantic call from my mother. For the first time, her voice wasn't cold or judgmental. It was scared. Son, please, you need to talk to us. Things are falling apart. Jack, he's not who we thought he was. He's been drinking, arguing with your father. He said things no one should ever say to their parents. I didn't feel pity, only a grim sense of satisfaction. You made him the head of the family, remember? I'm just respecting your decision. Her voice cracked. We made a mistake. I didn't reply. A few days after that, Emily showed up again. But this time she wasn't angry, she was desperate. Her hair was messy, her eyes puffy like she hadn't slept. Please, we can fix this. Jack isn't who I thought he was. He's draining us. The kids don't feel safe. Just come home, we'll figure it out. I leaned back in my chair, calm as ever. Home? That house stopped being my home the day you let him sit in my chair and told me I wasn't the head of the family. You don't get to erase that. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. That night, as I sat alone in my apartment, I realized something. Revenge wasn't just about punishing them. It was about reclaiming myself. They had tried to strip me of my role, my dignity, my identity. But in walking away and letting them stew in their choice, I had taken it all back. Still, I knew the storm wasn't over. Jack wouldn't go quietly, and Emily wasn't done begging. The missed calls kept coming. The texts grew more desperate, and rumors swirled in the neighborhood about fights breaking out at my house. And then, one evening, I received a call from an unknown number. When I answered, it wasn't Emily, or my parents, or even Jack. It was someone I hadn't expected at all, Jack's own girlfriend. Her voice was steady, almost icy. You should know. Jack has been lying to all of you. He isn't just staying with your family, he's using them. And when he's done, he'll disappear. He's done it before. My heart pounded. This was the missing piece, the leverage I didn't even know I needed. I didn't sleep that night. My mind was racing, but not with anger, with clarity. For the first time in years, I saw everything as it really was. My family, the people I had loved and sacrificed for, had sat together and decided that I wasn't worthy of being part of my own household. They thought I would yell, fight, maybe even beg, but they had no idea that their betrayal had freed me. The next morning, while they were likely eating breakfast and laughing about how weak I must have felt walking away, I was sitting across from my lawyer, drinking coffee and smiling for the first time in weeks. I had brought him every document, every bank statement, every proof of ownership I had carefully collected. Your brother lives here? He asked, going through the papers. Yes, I said. Moved himself right in. My wife let him. And they think they've taken over everything? I nodded. They think wrong. We spent hours mapping out the strategy. The house, in my name alone. The mortgage, paid by me alone. The cars, registered under me. The family business. Guess whose name was on every legal paper? Mine. They had sat there smug, thinking I was powerless. But in reality, I held every string. By the time I left the lawyer's office, the first steps were already in motion. Freezing joint accounts, redirecting paychecks, filing for divorce with evidence of infidelity and requesting emergency custody of my kids. That evening, I stayed in a hotel downtown. My phone buzzed, nonstop. Missed calls, texts, voicemails. My wife. First, why did you leave like that? Then my mother. You're overreacting, families adjust, this is normal. Then my father. Come back and apologize to Jack. You'll feel better once you accept it. Then my son. Dad, please don't be mad. Uncle Jack said this will make things easier. Every message was a knife, but they didn't cut me down, they sharpened me. 2 days later, the first shock hit them. My wife tried to pay for groceries with our joint account, only to discover it was empty. My brother tried to use the car, only to realize the insurance had been canceled and the keys deactivated. My parents, who lived in a small apartment I paid for, found out the lease renewal had been canceled. The panic escalated quickly. By the fourth day, I had 165 missed calls. They weren't mocking me anymore. They were begging. Finally, I answered one call. It was my wife, her voice shaky. "What did you do?" she demanded. "I took back what was mine," I replied calmly. "You can't do this to us," she screamed. "Us?" I said, laughing. "You chose us when you sat on that couch and replaced me with Jack. Now live with your choice." And I hung up. But that was just the beginning. The following week, court papers were delivered to the house. Divorce proceedings, custody requests, property claims. My wife called me again, crying this time. "Please don't do this. The kids need stability." "The kids need a father who isn't treated like a stranger in his own home," I said. The next bombshell dropped when my lawyer filed a restraining order against Jack, prohibiting him from staying at my house. The day the sheriff came to enforce it, I drove by slowly, watching Jack pack his bags in shame. While my wife and parents argued on the front lawn, neighbors watched, whispering, recording on their phones. The same neighbors. My wife had once worried about impressing, but the real revenge was yet to come. I had recorded the conversation. In that living room, every word of my son telling me I wasn't the head of the family, every agreement from my wife, every smirk from Jack. My lawyer suggested keeping it for court, but I had a better idea. At a family gathering. A month later, one I wasn't invited to, of course, I sent the recording to every relative, every family friend, even a few of my wife's colleagues. Within minutes, their phones started buzzing. The whispering turned to gasps. Their perfect little coup was exposed for everyone to hear. The next morning, my wife showed up at my hotel. Her makeup was smudged, her hair a mess, her voice cracking. "Please," she whispered. "We can fix this. Don't destroy us like this." I looked at her for a long moment. This was the same woman who had laughed while my own son told me I was replaced, the same woman who sat by while my parents told me to step aside. "There's nothing left to destroy," I said quietly. "You did that yourself." And I closed the door. I thought that after exposing their betrayal publicly, I would feel finished. But what I learned, very quickly, was that revenge is not just about destroying someone else's plans. It's about reclaiming your own life, piece by piece, until you no longer carry the weight of what they did to you. The court process began almost immediately. My lawyer filed for divorce. On the grounds of infidelity and emotional abuse, using both the recording and witness accounts to strengthen the case. My wife tried to counter, painting herself as a misunderstood partner who only wanted freedom, but the judge didn't buy it. The evidence was too strong. Jack tried to play the hero at first. He showed up at the hearings, sitting beside my wife, smiling like he had won some great prize. But every time the judge asked for proof of ownership, every time documents were reviewed, the smile faded a little more. The house? Mine. The business? Mine. The accounts? Mine. Jack had nothing to stand on. And then came the moment that shifted everything. My lawyer brought out the recording, the one where my son told me I was no longer the head of the family, where my wife sat silently while Jack smirked in the background. The judge listened carefully, pausing twice to rewind and replay certain words. When it ended, there was a heavy silence in the courtroom. "Mr. Jack," the judge said sternly, "you appear to have inserted yourself into a marriage and household that did not belong to you. This court views that very seriously." For the first time since this began, Jack looked nervous. He shifted in his seat, his usual confidence shattered. My wife reached for his hand, but he pulled away, already calculating how to save himself. The custody battle was next. My children were old enough to speak for themselves, and I feared what they might say. Would they side with their mother after everything? Would they see me as weak because I had walked away that night? When my son took the stand, my heart pounded. He looked at me, then at his mother, then back at the judge. His voice trembled at first. I thought Uncle Jack was better. He told me Dad was too strict, that he would let us do what we wanted. At first it seemed fun. But then, he started controlling everything. He yelled a lot. He said Dad was never coming back, but Dad did come back. And he didn't yell. He just fought for us. Tears stung my eyes. For months I had carried the pain of my own son, telling me I was replaced. And now hearing him say that out loud, in front of everyone, it felt like a wound beginning to heal. My daughter spoke next. "I just want to live somewhere safe," she said simply. "With Dad, I feel safe." The judge granted me primary custody that afternoon. My wife's face crumpled as the words were spoken, and Jack didn't even look at her. Outside the courthouse, Jack made his exit. He didn't wait for my wife, didn't defend her, didn't offer comfort. He just got into his car and drove away, leaving her standing on the steps alone. For all her talk about upgrading to a better man, she was left with nothing but a reputation in ruins. But my revenge didn't end with legal papers. I made sure that everyone who had watched me be humiliated that night on the couch knew the full truth. I didn't spread lies or embellishments. I simply let the facts speak. Friends who had once laughed behind my back started reaching out to me with apologies. Extended family who had avoided the topic suddenly cut ties with my wife and Jack entirely. My parents, who had sat silently, as my brother tried to take over my family, found themselves shunned by relatives who couldn't believe they had allowed it. For weeks, my mother called me daily, her voice breaking. "We made a mistake," she whispered once. "We thought Jack was stronger, that he could lead better. We were wrong." But I didn't soften. "You chose him," I replied coldly. "Now live with that choice." The final blow came when my business officially removed Jack from any role or association. For months he had bragged that he was running things now. When the news broke publicly that he had no legal or financial connection whatsoever, he became a joke in the community. The man who tried to steal his brother's life was left with nothing but a tarnished name. As for my wife, she tried one last time to reconcile. She showed up at my new apartment, dressed neatly, makeup done, speaking softly, as if that could erase everything. "We can start over," she said. "Forget what happened, for the kids." I looked at her for a long time. "Start over?" I finally said. "You didn't just betray me. You tried to erase me. You sat there and let our children believe I was worthless. That can't be forgotten. Not for the kids. Not for anyone." Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't feel sympathy. I felt freedom. For the first time in years, I wasn't living under the shadow of pleasing everyone else. I was living for myself and my children. The divorce was finalized soon after. The house was sold, the proceeds coming directly to me. My wife moved into a small apartment, Jack into another city entirely. My parents tried to rebuild a relationship, but the distance was too great. And me, I rebuilt from the ground up. Slowly, steadily, I put my energy into my kids, my business, and myself. I found joy in small things again. Cooking dinner with my daughter, watching my son play ball, walking into an office that no longer echoed with my brother's voice. One evening, months later, my son sat beside me on the couch. He looked at me with a guilt I recognized all too well. "Dad," he said quietly, "I'm sorry for what I said that night, about you not being the head of the family." I put my arm around him. "Son, you were just repeating what you were told. But remember this, being the head of a family isn't about power. It's about love, respect, and protecting each other. And that's what I'll always do for you." In that moment, I realized something important. My revenge was complete, but it wasn't the destruction that satisfied me. It was the rebuilding. The betrayers were gone, their schemes reduced to ashes. But what remained was stronger than before. I had my children, I had my freedom, and most of all, I had myself back. So, when people ask me if I regret what happened, I tell them no. Because sometimes, losing everything is the only way to discover what truly belongs to you. And that night, as I sat in my quiet home, my phone buzzing with yet another missed call from my ex-wife, I smiled to myself. I didn't need to answer. For the first time in years, I was finally at peace.